Hello and welcome to the Pink Dragon Guide from LearnToPlayWow.com, brought to you with the help of Guild Rise from Xavius. Halion Cleaves does a flame breath attack and has a tail swipe. The cleave is the most dangerous. The tail swipe does little damage but stuns for 2 seconds. The flame breath does somewhat survivable damage. Needless to say, you don't want to be caught by either of them, but if you have no choice, go for the tail swipe. Periodically, a raid member will get a debuff called Fiery Combustion. It can be dispelled as a magic effect or as a curse. The longer you take to dispel the debuff, the larger the spawned void zone area will be. But if you are too quick to dispel it, you are going to end up with a void zone in the middle of your group. Our raiders were getting dispelled just as they were reaching the outer edges of the encounter area. We had 3 locations for players to get dispelled on: left and right for the ranged, and back and behind the dragon for the melees. Halion casts Meteor Strike. This is a dangerous ability, mostly for ranged and healers. Look for the pulsating effect on the floor. That is where it will land. You have about 5 seconds to move out. From the meteor, fire will spread into 4 directions. Stay out of that fire. On heroic, besides the fire, there will be a couple of adds that will spawn from the meteor. You will have to separate the largest one from all the rest. That way they will not get damage and health buffs. But more on that on the heroic guide. Back to normal now. Once you get the boss to 75%, he goes into a shadow realm. Click the portal to follow. Same thing there with the debuff dispel. It's the same debuff mechanic, only that it's called soul consumption and it's an icon that looks like the case strangulate. On the field, the player will leave a void zone. The greatest killer in this phase, and possibly in the entire fight, is the Twilight Cutter. It's basically a death ray that forms between the 2 flowing orbs. If you go through it, you take serious damage or die. The key here is to keep the dragon centered, with the ray going through him. The death ray rotates, so move as it moves. Once the ray is up, players rarely get killed by it. However, raiders do sometimes die just as the ray spawns, because they cannot pinpoint its exact location in time. It's a bit easier for ranged and healers to spot it. Keep a moderate distance between you and the nearest sphere. Even if you can't spot the second sphere, you can imagine a line going from the sphere that you do see through roughly the middle of the boss. As a ranged DPS, the closer you are to the center, the less often you have to run. Watch out for the message, "The orbiting spheres pulse with dark energy." Seconds after the death ray will form. Keep moving left and avoid it. It's when you get this message that you should be most aware, especially if you are a melee and you are unsure of the death ray trajectory. As the ray is supposed to go smack through the middle of the boss, it will also go right through the middle of the melee camp. That is why it may be even better to take a couple of steps back from the boss and let the ray form up. After the ray is up, it's much easier to avoid it. There is little space to maneuver, but it's recommended that you end up behind the boss, with the tail swipe to your right and the ray to your left. If you sit in front, you risk a cleave or a 26k flame breath. On heroic, you will get 2 death rays. Don't confuse the portals with spheres. Finally, at around 50% health, portals will spawn and you are supposed to split your raid in two. Half of your raid will fight against him on one realm, half will click the portal and go fight him in the other realm. You will need a tank and some healers on each side. Some say it's best to keep melees in the Shadow realm and ranged in the real one. This is because of the movement issue. However, I disagree. I think it's better to balance ratios and keep a melee group and a ranged group in one realm and the second melee group and the second ranged group in the other realm. This way players are spread out better and it's easier to deal with the fire and the void zones. And also I think ranged have better chances of surviving the death rays than the melees, although they will do less DPS. Alright, so let's say you've split your raid in half whichever way you wanted. You are now supposed to DPS him equally on both sides. If one of the sides is faster on DPS, then the strength of the mighty pink dragon will significantly increase on the other side. So you want to keep equal DPS on both sides. As players die, the initial DPS split is not guaranteed to work, so it's good to have 1-2 capable players ready to jump from one realm to the other in order to balance DPS. Basically, if you see your efforts means your DPS is higher. If you see your companion's efforts means their DPS is higher. It's best if these messages alternate. I wish you the best of luck and the best of drops. If you want to help me out a bit, tell a friend about my videos. This has been a guide from learntoplaywo.com. Thanks for watching.